Alright, diesel engine mechanical service manual, diesel electric locomotive, transportation system, General Electric, 1651, 16501. Alright, section 4, lubricating oil system. The engine lubricating oil system provides pressure lubricating of the bearings with the engine and carries away the heat produced by the friction and combustion. Lubricating oil system consists of the following components in the order of the oil flow. See figure 4-7. Engine crankcase, pump, relief valve, filter, bypass valve, cooler, regulating valve, strainer, engine supply system. An oil pan is bolted with the mainframe and enclosed with the bottom of the crankcase holds the oil supply with the two oil filling openings, one on each side of the crankcase, are sealed by expendable plugs with two dipsticks on each side of the engine used to measure the crankcase oil level. The oil in the crankcase can drawn with the inverted trap within two suction side of the gear type lube oil pump. Oil flows inside the engine. Oil discharge of the pump is piped with the lube oil filter. Leaf valve protects the system against excessive pressure. Oil flows through the filter, then through the lower end of the oil coil cooler. When water flowing from the tubes inside of the cooler remove the heat from the oil. Oil discharge from the top of the cooler is piped to the engine free and covered and through the strainer mounted in the cover. Oil pressure regulating valves are mounted with the cover. The strainer inlet controls engine oil header pressure to discharge the excess oil of the crankcase. Oil flow outside the engine. Main engine supply header with the branches passage for the main frame conducting the oil to all main bearings from the four of the crankshaft bearings number 1 through 9 bearing at each bank. Oil ends for the crankshaft of the bearing flows through angularly drilled passages in the shaft of the crank pan bearings. Oil pass for the crank pan articulating lubricating with the articulation pin passes through the drilled pass for the main articulated rod fabricated lubricated piston pins. Oil then passes through the pistons, is shaken around with the chamber and turned to the piston crown. It cools with a whole piston head of it, then flows through and out of the orifice of the cylinder. Oil entering the 4 camshaft bearing is controlled with the lengthwise of the drilled camshaft with the hose drilled radially within the shaft supplied with the oil to each of the other shaft bearings. The camshaft bearing containing the angular groove connection with the drill patch of the engine mainframe. The oil flows through the passenger with the valve with the fuel push rod cross heads. The oil then flows upward through the valve push of the rod. Supply lubricating the worn working valve parts at the top of the cylinder. Oil returns then to the valve with the push rod cavity. Lubricating oil lubricates the cam and the cam rollers and then the crankcase. Then to the crankcase. The free end of the covering of the bearing idle gear bushing lubricating through the passage of the oil header with the angular groove through the covering bearing and another drill passage connect with the angular bearing groove to a drilled passage for the idler gear shaft. The auxiliary drive gear located on the crankshaft next to the vibration damper lubricated internally with the oil flowing through the passage within the shaft through the gear hub. Oil from the bearings returns by gravity to the crankcase. Turbocharger bearing receive the lubricating through the external line flange connected to the oil header with the free end of the cover. From the turbocharger's oil returned with the crankcase through the pipe of the flange connected with the cover. Lubricating oil pipe is the lubricating oil is piped into the governor driving assembly. Low oil pressure shutdown device located on the engine control governor of the pipe is flange connected with the engine oil header with the gear end of the oil from the governor drive case returned to the crankcase internally. Oil supplied with the overspeed governor with the maintain with a small reserve built into the governor drive with the gear case with the reservoir keep filled with the oil passage with the gear case. Camshaft gears are splashed lubricated through a orifice pipe of the engine oil holder bearings and drive gears. Oil water pumps are lubricated with running partially submerged in lubricating oil contained with the free and cover reservoirs. Lubricating oil pressure. Oil pressure must be maintained at all times during the engine operation. Insufficient oil pressure will cause the extensive damage bearings, castings, pistons, cylinders, or other moving parts within the engine. The lube oil pressure device will stop the engine, turn the yellow indicating light in the operator's cabin if the condition insufficient oil supply exists. When engine operating within normal temperature range, the oil head pressure will be approximately as noted with the data sheet during the engine starting time delay built into the low oil pressure shutdown device allow for the time for the engine oil pressure to build up. If the pressure fails to build up within time allotted, the low oil pressure device will trip to prevent the engine from starting. Lubricating oil service filling. To serve the lubricating oil system, provide the valve. Check with the drain valves A, B, and C are closed. Fill the crankcase either from the crankcase cover doors through one of the oil fill pipes with the correct quantity of the new oil. Lubricating oil. The oil must be conformed to the required specification. Filled with a full level to mark with a dipstick. 3. With the engine idling, the oil level of the marks must be between the full and low marks on the dipstick. Draining. Lubricating oil system drained by use of the 3 valves of identifying valve A, valve B, valve C. The following list is identified with the valve, but the combination of the valves must be open to drain the various portions of the system. Valve A with the crankcase drain valve is open to drain the main oil supply from the engine of the crankcase. The valve B, end of the cover, drains the oil filter from the oil over the board. Valve C, filter drain back valve, drains the oil filter oil cooler back to the crankcase. With valves B and C both open, the oil filter and oil cooler the front end of the drain overboard, changing oil. With the engine stopped, remove the pipe cap for the drain pipe with the pipe extended below the platform over the fuel tank. On the right side of the engine, arrange barrels and drain hose systems to catch used oil. Figure 4.1 shows the lube oil fill pipe oil fill dipstick. Open the crankcase drain valve A with the end cover the drain valve C with the filter drain valve B. Remove the vent plug, fill cover the cleaning the strain, remove the strain with the cover of the element, remove the elements and clean the cover. Clean the elements and use suitable cleaning with low pressure steam. The belt below the element dry with the compressor air. Inspect the strainer screen. Be sure that there are no holes, cracks, which will permit foreign materials to pass through. Renew all gaskets resemble the strainer. Tighten the cover. Caution uneven excessive tightening over the cover nuts may cause the cover to break. Renewing the filter elements. Renew the filter element. Proceed as follows. Remove the oil filter vent plug with the drain with the filter. Replace tightly when through the drain. Filter drain may be expedited by applying with the air pressure not over 50 psi with the filter vent and observe applicable safety precautions. Drain the filter by opening valve C. Remove the filter vent plug. Oil level within the filter will drop by gravity to level of the crankcase. Loosen the filter cover clamps. Open the hinge cover over after the oil has been drained with the filter tank. Remove the wing nuts and the element hold down plates. Remove the used elements. Place them in the suitable container to catch each dippings. Clean any sludge deposits from the filter shelf with the install of the new filter. See the new renewal part catalog for correct replacement part. No, do not use cotton waste filters. Install element hold down plates and the wing nuts. Tighten nuts evenly. Hand tighten only. Be sure the filter elements are seated and clamped securely. Inspect the filter cover of the gasket and possible damage. Replace the necessary close the filter cover and tighten the clamping bolts evenly. 9. Replace and tighten the vent plug. Relief in the regulating valves. Pressure of the flowing within lube oil system automatically controlled by the 2 pressure operated pump relief valve, engine pressure regulating valve where used. The valve are held closed and adjusted if the spring pressure with sufficient oil pressure develops, and it will overcome the spring pressure, causing the valve to open and pass oil. The function of each of the 2 note valves with the system should be thoroughly understood before attempting to is made with the chain with their settings. Normally, these valves do not go out of adjustment. However, they may fail to function properly due to leaking caused by the dirt holding of the valve over the seat. Dirt wedged around the valve stem causing erratic valve operation. Disassembling the valve with the cleaning allows always marks with adjustment so that they may be returned to the correct setting without removal from the system. Your pump relief valve. The pump relief valve located on the outlet of the lube oil pump protects the system against the excessive oil pressure may develop, and should the system be restricted or the filters become dirty, the pump discharge system pressure exceeds the valve operating pressure. The valve will be forced open, permitting oil to flow through and free and covering the limited pressure oil pressure relief valve can be set by removing it from the locomotive and adjusting the test stand similar to the one illustrated in figure 4.2 instructions of the setting of the valve as follows. 4.2 testing arrangement adjustment valves. Should the test valve with the gauge A and the oil pump safety valve set at 150 psi pump in the motor. Alright, start pump A with the open. Close the A until the set pressure is reached. Adjusting valves until the oil starts to flow. If the pump flows at 20 gallons per minute or less, the valve can be set at A with the A closed completely. If necessary to set the valve on the locomotive, it can be done. Clean filters, cold oil, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Start with the engine. At idle, set the valve with the proper pressure. Pressure regulating valve. Main loop oil header pressure regulating valve with a self-contained device located within inside the left bank with a camshaft with access for the opening with the free end of the cover of the valve body sealed with the end of the cover. Oil passages O-rings held with the place by bolts. Accessing the pressure adjustment screw is obtained by removing the cap of the figure 4.3. The valve maintained with relatively constant engine oil pressure head pressure, although the volume of the oil flow through the system continues with the change with the result of the engine speed. Oil pressure for the engine header is applied with the inner ending of the valve regulating piston with the opposition to spring force. Therefore, the engine oil header pressure tends to drop due to the plunger over the strainer. The spring force becomes more effective and thus raising the pressure setting of the valve to compensate for the increased pressure drop across the strainer. Adjusting. The regulating valve must be adjusted as follows. Make sure the strainer element is clean, but then warm the engine to normal operating temperature. One the cabin figure 4.3 shows lube oil pressure regulating valve. One cap. It's got a mark over the top of it. It would be cap adjusting screw lock mount regulating piston oil valve ring, oil pressure connection lube, and oil lube filter, oil lube header. Alright, move the bolt covered over the valve to operate with the engine over the notch. 8. Loosen the lock nut to turn the adjusting screw in and out. It's a 75 psi gauge cab gauge with the decision time with the pressure reading with the stabilizer with the between adjusting and with the turning of the adjusting screw with the raise of the pressure. Tighten the lock nut, securely replace with the cap. Lube oil filter. Lube oil filter fabricated cylinder steel type with the hinge and the gasket cover which is clamped. And it shows over here, shows the lube oil filter cover clamp, bolt, oil ring, filter element, oil outlet to the cooler, pipe plug, oil inlet, pump, baffled, handhold plates, hold down plates, hold down plate, wing nut, vent plug. To hold the maximum system pressure of the filter shelf and support with a fabricated steel, which is part of the filter assembly. Internal oil filter is arranged with 2 separate cavities. Oil flowing with the filter pass shall pass inward through the 8 elements located with the upper cavity downward for the elements entering the lower cavity out through the outlet pipe. Lubricating oil system, section 4. Lubricating oil coolers. Fabricated steel shell connect the vertical water tubes, figure 4-5. So there's water in, water outlet, shell tube, bundle, bonnet, stud, hex nut, lock, washer, packaging room, glad ring, gasket, shimmer, spacer, hex nut. The cooler is mounted with a vertical position with its top plane for the bolt directed with the underside of the wall with the storage tank with the water. The tank flows downward through the tubes of the bottom head of the connect with the suction side of the water pump. Oil filter oil from the filter end of the bottom of the cooler flows upward around the tubes of the outlet which is engine free, covered with the internal baffle. Direct oil flows through the tubes and then produce the maximum cooling. The tubes over there, then secured with their end of the sheet with the expansion of the rolling with the upper tube with the seal with the clamp with the seal with the between the upper round cooler flange of the water tank loop tube sheet is free with the move of the vertical and the shell of the compensator with the expansion seal consisting of the 2 packaging rings, packaging ring spacer located at the lower end of the flange headed with the prevent leakage between the oil water section, but also allows movement of the tube sheet lower end of the compression of the rubber packing ring with control with the spacer adjusting shims at each clamping bolt figure 4-5. Alright, the packaging ring spacer has several weak holes that drill through it. Failure of each of the packaging ring will indicate by oil water leakage within the flange. This will prevent leakage of oil water and vice versa. See figure 4-5 view, enlarged view A. Your lube oil strainer is built from the free end of the cover of the shown figure 4-6 figure 5 O-ring seal between the strainer housing free end with the cover labeled A through E with the figure 4-6 for the whole vented atmosphere located with the 0 O-rings and A and B prevents oil from bypassing the strainer should the O-rings develop leakage. Leak package for the O-rings will indicate the oil slipping from the hole of the oil is extremely located with the free end with the cover just to the right with the engine temperature timing pointer. There will be no indicated external indication leaks past O-ring. C with the leakage may be inspected. Lube oil pressure drops below and other parts of the system in condition. Leakage past the O-rings D and E would be noticed in the oil outside of the free end of the cover by the strainer housing. Remove the strainer housing. Take out the 3 and 5/8 inch and 11-inch bolts around the strainer flange. Strainer may be jacketed out by inserting 5 inch by 11 by 2 inch the bolts to tap the jacking holes mounted flange, turning of the bolts evenly with the strainer that comes free. Alright, housing installation. Before reinstalling the strainer O-ring groove with the exterior that should be cleaned with a new O-ring should be installed. Inspect and clean with the sealing strip of the free end of the cover. Lubricating oil rings when inserting the strainer with the free end of the cover. Make sure with a small O-ring in the round groove with the strainer finger flange back of the drain valve. If necessary, extra long 5/8 inch 11-inch bolts, 5/8 by 11 bolts may be used temporarily to mount the mounting flange to assist the bolt pulling of the strainer to its seat. Lubricating oil system, oil capacity 385 gallons, pressure relief valve setting 150 psi, head pressure regulating valve 75 when used, engine head pressure knob operating at the temperature of the governor supply line, engine idle approximately 20 psi, engine full speed 75 psi, torque values, lube pump, drive gear nut, it's 375 to 400 pounds a foot. And this shows you a picture of the lubricating oil system. Section 5. Cut the tape there.